today's episode of Southern Character, I am in the Crescent City, New Orleans, Louisiana, in the heart of the French Quarter, actually sitting at 417 Royal Street, the big pink building. I'm joined today by Ralph Brennan, who is both a leader and respected voice of the New Orleans restaurant community, and whose family has been dedicated to providing exceptional dining experiences centered around New Orleans food culture for almost 80 years now. You're president of the Ralph Brennan Restaurant Group. I know we'll probably get into a little French speak today, but I know you don't really call it a slogan. It's more of a way of life for your restaurants, or it seems to be, or maybe it's your raison d'etre, if we want to go French. But Nola Bred, Nola Fête. I love that.
We coined that phrase a long time ago. First, let me say welcome, James,
you.
and thank you for being here with us at Brennan's.
No, it's beautiful. Actually, when I walked in, so we're sitting in the Queen's Room,
yes,
upstairs at Brennan's, and when I walked in, the first thought I had to myself, I was actually in this room about 32 years ago. I grew up, much like you, everything was centered around food, parties, celebration, interaction. And this room in particular, the Queen's Room, so when I was in high school, we won the state championship in basketball in 91, 92, and 93. And we actually sat in this room in 92 and 93 for a celebratory dinner as a team. So
it's good.
It's good to be back.
Congratulations. Where'd you go to school?
I went to Newman.
Newman, great.
And you went to École Classique?
École Classique, yeah.
Okay. So let's get into, for anyone who's not familiar, I'm sorry, hopefully you'll become familiar very soon. Since we're in the French Quarter, we'll start, I'll just kind of go through the French Quarter restaurants. So here in the French Quarter, you have Brennan's.
Yes.
And right around the corner is Napoleon House, which, by the way, I went by there yesterday.
Good.
And had a delightful lunch. It was hotter than you can imagine. I almost went with the frozen Pim's Cup instead of the regular Pim's Cup. But so the Napoleon House, which is an incredible space. The Redfish Grill, also in the French Quarter. Then if we go over to Mid-City, you have Ralph's on the Park and Cafe Noma, which is located inside the New Orleans Museum of Art. And then a little further away from New Orleans, you have the location in Anaheim, in downtown Disney, so the Jazz Kitchen and Coastal Grill and Patio. In addition to that, so you have a catering company as well.
Yes. Ownership
interests in other restaurants in New Orleans as well, like Mr. B's and Commander's. You're also a writer, apparently. So you have Ralph Brennan's New Orleans Seafood Cookbook.
Right.
I have a funny story about that if you'd like to hear it. But other than that, as if that wasn't enough, you're also very much giving back to your community. Very heavily involved in community service. You've served as past chair of the Board of Trustees for the Culinary Institute of America, the National Restaurant Association, Louisiana Restaurant Association, the Memorial New Orleans Convention Center. You're currently involved with the Sugar Bowl Committee. Children's Hospital New Orleans, past chair, LCMC, Louisiana Children's Medical Center, former board member.
Really call it LCMC.
We'll call it LCMC.
Yeah, it's a 7 hospital system located here in New Orleans and around the metro area.
Wow. Where do you find time to do things in your life? You do so many things.
For most of those, I have the title I most favor. That's past chair, so responsibilities drop off. But I stay active in those organizations because I really believe, and it's one of our core values of my company, of community and social responsibility. We need to give back. My family's been very lucky to be in New Orleans, in the food business in New Orleans, and at a time really when that business exploded since the 80s when I got back into the business. Mm-hmm. And you can see everything going on in the city now. There are many, many more restaurants opening up in all different varieties and of restaurants. So I think it's our obligation to give back to our community, and we do that in many, many ways.
No, that's fantastic. You mentioned core values a second ago. And most companies have a core value set or a mission statement. And so I was on your website for your restaurant group, for the Ralph Brennan Restaurant Group, and I was reading the core values, and one really jumped out at me that I wanted to ask you about, the one that stood out most to me, and I think it speaks to a lot of who you are. I'll just say it. It's mastery of guest satisfaction.
Right.
Please tell me more about that and what that means to you.
Well, I think a lot of people talk about guest satisfaction in our industry, but they don't deliver. Mm-hmm. We focus on delivering. I mean, our team members are empowered to do whatever it takes to make our guests happy. And our company motto is make our guests happy and enjoy the thrill of doing so. So whatever we need to do, we work to make our guests happy because we want them to leave happy. We're creating experiences. I stole a line from one of our general managers of the Jazz Kitchen, earlier general manager, and it is he called it the House of Yes. That was his term. And I thought it was so simple and concise that I use it a lot. We are the House of Yes. When a guest asks for something special, unless it's something we absolutely cannot do, we'll do it for you. And then if we make a mistake, and we're human beings and we do make some mistakes occasionally, we fix it. And we do whatever it takes to fix it. And selfishly, I learned early on that if you turn something around, people are very appreciative of that. And so when they leave, and we want all of our guests to leave with a good experience or even a hiccup or so, and we fix it, they become ambassadors for the restaurant.
Right.
And word of mouth is the most powerful marketing tool you can have. Good word of mouth. And especially these days with social media and everyone posting all the time, to get those good comments means a whole lot to us. And I think it's one of the keys to our success.
Yeah, I mean, your group is very active on social media. I was actually looking at all the feeds the other day. Every venue, every space, every restaurant has its own social media handle, right? So you guys are pretty active. And you're right. I have much more respect for someone that says, hey, I made a mistake, let me fix it, as opposed to the person or the entity that pretends like it didn't happen, or just let me just sweep this one under the rug.
Right.
So no, I think you're dead on there. So as far as I'm concerned, your family and you have really evolved the restaurant scene in New Orleans from its early beginnings. So really going back to your aunt, Ella, well, really, she came from a family of 6 siblings total. Yes. And so my understanding is that she, I don't know, I guess I was reading pieces of her biography, but she got a little bored when she was in school, and her brother Owen had purchased the old Absinthe House, which actually I went to Newman High School, and the Absinthe is the yearbook. That's what they call the yearbook, but it has a lot to do with the old Absinthe House. But my understanding is she got her first job, maybe to the chagrin of her mother, working for Owen in the French Quarter, with her mother being a little worried about she was going to hang out with some unsavory characters, shall we say, in the French Quarter. But brother said, no, I'll take care of my sister. And my favorite line that I read was that while her friends were at finishing school, she was at Lafitte's, referencing Lafitte's blacksmith shop. But so as the story goes, right, they basically moved the Vieux Carré restaurant to this building that we're in today, 417 Royal Street.
Yes.
He passes away, and she basically steps in.
Yes,
right.
That's correct. Uncle Owen bought the Absinthe House in about 1946. And several years later, it's funny, we haven't been able to find the exact date, he took over the Vieux Carré restaurant across the street.
Right.
And the story goes it was on a dare from Count Arnaud, from Arnaud's restaurant across the street.
Yes.
And Count Arnaud told him that an Irishman could never run a French restaurant. And at that time, French restaurants were the thing. So they bought this, they took over, they didn't buy the building, but they took over the restaurant that was there, to put the Brennan name on it, and called it Brennan's Vieux Carré Restaurant. And that's where it all started. And then in 1955, they had an opportunity to acquire the building that we're in now, at 417 Royal. It was a restaurant called Patio Royale. And they began a one-year renovation of the building. And unfortunately, Uncle Owen passed away before the renovation was complete. So they completed the renovation and then ceremoniously had a parade. We have parades all the time here, and paraded over here on opening day. And that was in 1956. So we've been here ever since.
Not trying to date you, and I know it's probably a weird question, but what year were you born?
1951.
1951. So you experienced the parade? Then?
I did not experience the parade. I don't remember that. I do remember walking with my grandfather over here. Very, very vague memory. But yeah, I don't remember the parade. My kids actually found some pictures of the parade, and they have them hanging up in their dens.
That's very nice.
Yeah.
So 6 siblings together.
Yes.
Lots of cousins. Right? So I mean, you have just a big, huge family.
Surprisingly, not that big.
Not that big.
No, because Uncle Owen had 3 boys. Aunt Adelaide, who was second, had no children. We had 4. Ella had 2. Uncle Dick had 2, and Aunt Dottie had 3. So it's not like We had dozens and dozens.
Okay. So, but you were close.
Yes. But my grandparents had children over a span of about 25 years.
Okay.
So Owen's kids were a lot older. They were a lot older than I am, and then the youngest were a lot younger. So it's pretty spread out.
Well, were you and your siblings about the same age as Ella's children, or were you guys closer in age, or no?
A little bit older.
Okay.
Yeah, my younger sister Cindy and Tommy were closer to them. Lally and I were a little bit older, but generally we're all close. The cousins that are in the business now that have their own restaurants and their own companies, we're close. I mean, we don't work together, but we don't.
You don't undercut each other.
Yes, we help each other every chance we get.
That's great.
And we send business back and forth when we can if the opportunity presents itself.
Yeah. No, I was actually last night. So we're talking about history. My grandfather served for the Corps of Engineers in New Orleans in the late 50s, and then was a member of the Port Authority. He loved your aunt. He also loved Brennan's. He loved Commander's Palace. You speak of the different families and restaurant groups. One of his favorite spots too. I won't go down the road too far on this. He loved Pascal Manali's uptown. I was actually so yesterday I was walking around the French Quarter and I almost melted, and so I stopped in the Napoleon house because I love a muffalata, and I know we were emailing back and forth. I'm like, well, you claim to have the best muffalata in town, and you kind of quit back. You're like, well, we think so. So. I was raised on Central Grocery, so I went to Napoleon House yesterday and I ordered the muffalata, quarter muffalata, and the red beans and rice. And I have to tell you, well, the muffalata was outstanding, but the red beans and rice really blew me away. I don't know what you're putting in the red beans over there. Is that recipe kind of ubiquitous throughout the restaurants, or is that only at Napoleon House?
That's only Napoleon House.
Okay.
We acquired that restaurant in 2015 from the Impostata family.
Right.
And they'd owned it for 101 years. And they came to a point where they didn't have any successors to take over the restaurant.
Oh, okay.
And so they reached out to us to acquire the restaurant. And it came through one of my contacts that I had from my Price Waterhouse days when I worked there in accounting before I got back into the restaurant business. And we wound up buying it and taking it over, and we've honored their recipes for the most part. And we haven't made any changes to the restaurant, but it's what they do, and we have one person who makes the red beans every day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Don't ever lose that person.
No.
They are outstanding. But I guess the point I was trying to make is that I went to Napoleon House, quarter muffalata, red beans and rice. I had a Pim's cup. I should have gotten a frozen Pim's cup to go for my walk back to the hotel, which, looking back now, that was a mistake. But I walked down the river. I almost melted. But I took a dip in the pool. I cooled off. And then for dinner, I went over to Manali's because I just hadn't had barbecue shrimp in an age. But I know that's your cousin Dickie, right?
My cousin Dickie bought that restaurant.
Right.
But, we talked about how people are interconnected earlier. And I grew up in Manali's.
Really?
Because my mother's parents went there every Friday night for dinner. And so when we were little, my parents would go and take us to Manali's.
Okay,
and we'd have dinner there.
Is that what kind of drove the Italian tie-in? Because I was reading about you guys having like big Italian dinners when you were growing up. Was that
No,
Manali's?
I have a grandmother who was Sicilian. And my grandfather's Irish. And then, of course, on the Brennan side, it's all Irish. So.
Okay.
But anyway, when I got into college, in those days when you don't have enough money, and even when I was working and I didn't have enough money to eat, I could always go there on Friday nights and meet my grandparents. And it was great. And so that place has always had a special place in my heart, too.
It's a great spot.
Yeah.
So I grew up on Napoleon Avenue, literally like right down the street from
Good.
from
I didn't know
Manali's.
that. Okay.
So let's get back to growing up. Your father, Ella's brother.
Right.
So they were opening restaurants in New Orleans, but your father had I want you to tell me the correct pronunciation of the name, but the potato company.
It was called initially Brennan's Prepared Potato Company.
Okay.
And they actually used to just process potatoes. So they would prepare French fries so they were ready to fry, fresh French fries. They would do things with whole potatoes so they could be easily boiled. They didn't have to be skinned. He took care of that. But then that company grew into something called Brennan's Institutional Supplies, where he offered all the supplies that we need and food products that we need. It was a small company. It's kind of like one of the bigger companies, U.S. Food or Cisco. And so he was a competitor to them. And eventually he couldn't compete with them, and he retired.
But your father was basically, that company was supplying the potatoes to most of the restaurants in New Orleans?
Yes.
Is that the case?
To a lot of them, yes.
Yeah.
I remember driving delivery trucks all over town.
So is that what you did for summer jobs when you were growing
I did
up?
that for a couple of summers.
Okay. You delivered potatoes?
Yes.
To people like Count Arnaud, you know, who
It could have been
dared
there,
your
yeah.
uncle, but
I very vividly remember all those seafood restaurants that used to be on the lakefront. And, carrying these 35-pound bags. I probably didn't weigh much more than 35 pounds then. And you'd sling them up on your shoulder and walk them in the restaurant. But it was fascinating to me because I got to see a lot of restaurants I'd never seen before and parts of town that really I hadn't seen before.
So you'd mentioned working summers delivering potatoes, but I also read somewhere that one of your first jobs was peeling shrimp and deboning chickens here at
Yes.
Brennan's for your aunt. So was that in high school?
That was in high school. I was probably a sophomore in high school, and that was my first job in the restaurant business.
Was there?
Was here. Although I grew up in the restaurant here at Brennan's, and I played here as a child. That was my first job, a summer job.
First paying gig.
Paying gig.
So your dad didn't pay you to deliver potatoes?
He paid me a little, and they also paid me a little here too.
Okay.
My dad never believed in paying me because he thought I had enough money, but they paid me a little. So my job was to work in the prep kitchen upstairs here, and I used to bone chickens and peel shrimp. And there was one day when we had a big party, and I don't remember how many chickens we boned and peeled and everything, but I went home and my aunt was having dinner with my parents at home, and they said, I got home and I said, "What's for dinner?" And they said, "Chicken." And I said, "Nope, I'm out of here."
You just couldn't look at a chicken.
And I got on my bike and I rode to get a hamburger. Then my aunt remembered that, and when I came into work the next week, she said, "Okay, it's time to promote you and move you downstairs to the line." So for the last 3 or 4 weeks of that summer, I worked downstairs on the line. I learned how to poach eggs and make hollandaise sauce for eggs Benedict and eggs Hussard. And I worked with a guy named Jimmy Smith, who ultimately worked with me at Mr. B's as our Creole chef. But he taught me how to do that, and they taught me other things too while I was on the line.
So I love to eat. I love to cook. As I was researching you, I realized that I'd never poached an egg. And so I started watching YouTube videos on how to poach an egg. And my wife and I, we heated up the water. We didn't get it too hot. We did the vortex. What is your trick, or do you have one for poaching the perfect egg?
You just have to get your water right, and then just crack that egg and go.
Do you use vinegar or not? So
a little bit of vinegar.
A little bit. Okay, so you're okay with that? Because I read some people said use vinegar.
I think you need to use a little bit and maybe a pinch of salt. And then I have this funny story when after that summer was over, my mother decided we were going to have eggs Benedict at home. She asked me to poach the eggs, and I picked them up one in each hand, and I did them 2 at a time, which is what they do in the kitchen here. And she was shocked that I could do it and not get a shell in.
Right. You're a pro. Well, one of the places that you mentioned, and I had never heard of this until you mentioned it to me, is Brennan's Friendship House in Gulfport, Mississippi. So I found a couple of clips on that, but tell me about that. What was your tie into the Friendship House?
It was a family-style seafood restaurant midway between Gulfport and Biloxi, Mississippi, on the dividing line, Cowan Road.
Is that over by Pass Christian, or?
It's past Christian.
Okay.
And it was a family-style restaurant that really did its business between Memorial Day and Labor Day.
Okay, so summer
And
scene.
there were some summers they needed help, and I went over there and worked there. And
mainly seafood?
Mainly seafood, lots of fried seafood. They had some wonderful biscuits over there. And I stayed in one of the cottages in the back that they had, that the family used to stay in. It's our first vacation home, so to speak. And it was a wonderful time. I worked 7 days a week, made a little more money than I made at Brennan's.
Okay.
So I was happy when I went back to school.
So you finish high school and you go to Tulane.
Right.
So were you working in restaurants while you were at Tulane, or when you were at Tulane, were you just studying?
I did some part-time work in the restaurants when they needed me. Here at Brennan's, I'd work the busy weekends, usually the front door, and help in the seating, because that's one thing I had learned over time. And then
so greeting guests, like as a host.
Greeting guests, yeah.
Okay. Were you ever flambéing bananas Foster for people? Did that ever happen?
No.
Okay.
I wasn't confident enough back then.
For any of you that are not familiar, Bananas Foster was invented here, right?
Yep.
Okay. So 1975, I believe is when you finished Tulane. So you have a degree in
Right.
economics,
Right.
you have an MBA. Consequently, I was born at Southern Baptist Hospital, not that you're aware of that, in 1975.
Okay.
But instead of going directly into the restaurant business, it's almost like there was no room at the end, right? So there wasn't a space for you. Was that upsetting? I mean, for you, was that what you wanted to do when you finished, or?
No, I was disappointed. I wanted to go in the restaurant business.
Okay.
But in 1974, and it actually began in the summer of 1973, my family had a disagreement. And it culminated with a splitting up of the company in the spring of 1974. And my three older cousins, the three sons of Owen Brennan, took Brennan's here in New Orleans.
Right.
And my father and aunts and uncles kept the other restaurants. And my aunt sat me down and said, I don't have a place for you right now. You need to get a job.
So that's what it was. Okay.
Yes. And, I took a lot of accounting and finance while I was at Tulane's MBA program. And I interviewed, and Price Waterhouse was nice enough to offer me a job. And I had a wonderful experience there. I learned a lot. I learned it fast about different companies and how they operate.
That had to have been an amazing experience.
Yeah, it really was.
When you were working with different companies, did you focus more on the restaurant companies or
No.
Okay. Food
No.
service or?
No, we had one food service client. I can't mention the name
Okay.
probably, but I didn't work on it. I worked on other companies, but I really learned a lot. I learned about how people operate. I learned about companies and their core values. I learned about the financial side of the business. So it was a great experience for me.
And you mentioned you did a stint in Canada? Or
Canada, yeah.
How did they send you up to Canada, like Great White North?
Well,
How did a Louisiana boy react to that?
Price Waterhouse had a program of international work, and it was like internships around the world. And I wanted to go somewhere on a 2-year program, but I couldn't get one, and they offered me 6 months in Calgary, Alberta. And the reason is because Calgary was booming, with the oil industry. And when I arrived, I mean, there were office buildings and hotels and everything being built all over downtown. And they just needed help. So I came in there to help them for 6 months. And, they tried to keep me up there, but that wasn't supposed to happen, and I couldn't stay. But I had another fascinating experience, wonderful people that I met. And it rounded me out a little bit.
Did you get your CPA? Were you a CPA? Did you get the licensure when you were doing that?
When I was in Canada?
Oh, no, when you were at Price Waterhouse.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
And you get that right away. And it took me a year to get it. I took the exam before starting work, and I passed 3 of the 4 parts. And then I had passed the 4th part. You had a year to pass the 4th part, and I did it.
Do you still maintain that credential? Didn't do the continuing education for that, or no? I'm just
I
curious.
don't do the continuing education. I pay $25 a year, and I keep it so I can hang it on my wall. I'm proud of it.
Yeah, well, of course.
I mean, I worked hard
It's
for it.
a lot of work.
And I had a great experience, so.
Do you do the taxes for the company
No,
and yourself?
no,
Okay. You
no.
farm that out?
No.
No way.
That's not, I learned quickly that the business I'm in is a people business.
Yes.
The numbers are there, and they're very important. But if you take care of your guests and you take care of your staff, the numbers work.
Right.
And I have an excellent team that do all the numbers. They get nervous when I dabble with the numbers, especially taxes.
That's funny. So you didn't get the initial start, maybe where you thought you would. You ended up going, suffice to say, a different route for a period of time. So what was the tie-in back? So you're at Price Waterhouse. Your aunts, both aunts, Ella and Adelaide, are crushing it, Commander's Palace, and doing. So how do you come back? Like, what brings you back into the fold, into the restaurant side?
It was Christmas night of 1980 at my parents' dinner table, and I was seated next to Ella, and we were drinking red wine. And she leaned over to me and said, "Call me. I want you to come back in the company." And I said, "Okay." And I didn't call her fast enough.
Oh, wow.
And she tracked me down. I was on a client in Mobile. And she had said, "You haven't called me." And I said, "Well, I'm busy. I'm doing this." And anyway, she called me. I came back. We talked. And I decided to take a risk and
So at this point in time, you're not married.
was not married.
So single Ralph, you get a call from Aunt Ella, or not a call, I'm sorry. She basically had to come, track you down twice. "Oh, Aunt Ella, I'm busy." "No, seriously, come on." But so you make a decision.
Right.
You take a risk.
Right.
So this is 1980. So you've been in the CPA world for what, 5 years now,
Yep.
right?
Almost
Probably
6.
doing pretty well, again, finding your groove and finding your gear, and now you're about to career change.
Right.
How did that work? Walk me through that.
Well, I mean, going from public accounting to restaurants is about 180 degrees.
Yeah, I would think so.
But the fun thing is, she said you need to get some training.
Mm-hmm.
So she said, I'm going to send you to France and to New York. And she sent me first to a language school in the south of France.
Okay.
So, I leave Price Waterhouse on, let's say, a Friday, and Monday I'm on a plane to the south of France.
And so this was in Villefranche-sur-Mer,
Sur-Mer.
between Nice
Yes.
and Monaco.
And my cousin Alex was with me, and we're staying in an apartment that is owned by a friend of ours' family. We met him as an exchange student. His family lives in Monte Carlo.
Fascinating.
So I'm staying in Monte Carlo,
Unreal.
going to...
Had you been there before?
Never to Monte Carlo.
Okay.
I'd been to the south of France, but not there. And I'd taken a lot of French, at École Classique. So the program was pretty easy for me. I picked up a lot of things quickly, but it was just a wonderful month of relaxation. And then I went up to Paris and spent 3 months in a culinary program. It was just a quick overview of cooking. Again, a wonderful experience to live in Paris for three months.
Was the program bilingual? Did they teach French and English, or
It
did you
was
have to learn
primarily in
French?
English.
Okay.
Yes, it was called La Varenne, and a lady named Anne Willen from the United States ran the program. So it was really designed for Americans. And it was somewhat of a consumer program, but it gave me a great overview of cooking again, because I'd spent time in the kitchens, but never enough. And then I came back, and she sent me to the 21 Club in New York for a couple of months. And of course, they were legendary for their service.
Mm-hmm.
And family friends. At that time, all across the country, there were family-owned restaurants, at high-end family restaurants, that often exchanged children so they could learn and grow.
I was wondering what the tie-in was between Ella and the 21 Club,
Yeah.
but okay. But she had friends there? Or
She had friends there.
Okay.
And so they took me in for a couple of months. I actually started in the wine cellar, and which was fun, because it was famous for its prohibition days and how it was hidden from the authorities and everything. And then I moved into the kitchen, and then I went into private parties, and then I came home.
But so was it in New York when you met Susan, your future wife,
Yes.
who was also from New Orleans?
New Orleans.
But was she a child exchange program?
No,
too?
no.
How did Susan end up from New Orleans at the 21 Club, where you two meet?
She and friends, Susan and friends, moved to New York after college. She went to
Okay.
Vanderbilt, but she came home, and some of her New Orleans friends were bored, and so they decided to move to New York. And she went to work. She had studied art and antiques, and she had worked on Royal Street prior to that, going to New York. So she was doing that. My sister Lally had a friend who took me to a party at Susan's apartment.
So was Susan working at 21 Club, or you were working at 21 Club,
She was
and you just
working
met her
at
at a
an
party?
antique store.
So you and Lally, she's like, "Hey, Ralph, come to a party with me."
Yeah.
And you meet Susan.
Mm-hmm.
And so you guys meet there, but you come back to New Orleans.
Right.
I mean, did she come back with you? Like, did she stay in New York for a while? Like, so you go to New Orleans, and you're now at Mr. B's,
Right.
correct? So then when did Susan come back?
She came back in 1983 to marry me, but it took me about a year to convince her.
To convince her to come back to New Orleans.
Fortunately, I had a cousin who was a travel agent. And I'm young and crazy, and I'm making a little bit of money, and I'm in love, and I commuted to New York sometimes. Okay. I'd go up for a short weekend, a long weekend. I would...
Is this by plane or train? I'm just curious.
Plane.
Plane.
Eastern Airlines, if you remember old Eastern Airlines,
Yeah.
which merged eventually into Continental and others. And I would go up there and visit her, and then all of a sudden she started to come visit me.
So you had a long-distance relationship for like 2 years?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Did not know that. And hopefully for you, because I know the chagrin of many people now, hopefully they had direct flights to New York back in the day, because I think today you would probably have to fly to Atlanta and then New York.
Yep. Yep.
So that's great. So you're at Mr. B's in 1982, and that's where you became the general manager there. Is that correct?
Yes. Ella was concerned about the management team there, and she sent me there as the night manager. And she said, I want you to confirm what I believe. And I eventually confirmed what she believed, and she made a change. And she made me the general manager. And then we went about trying to hire a chef, and that's the rest is history. So,
Okay. So then from there, so this is 1982, 1983. Eventually, you start opening restaurants, right? So, like, how did you what was the transition from Mr. B to kind of starting, Ralph Brennan Restaurant Group? How did that come to pass?
well, first off, I had family working with me at Mr. B's. My cousin Lauren worked there for a while. My sister Lally worked there for a while. My sister Cindy, who had been working at Brennan's of Houston, came home and worked with me there for a while. Lauren moved on. Lally moved up to Commander's to do private parties. Cindy stayed with me there. And we just had an opportunity that our landlord presented to us, the Mr. B's landlord. And it was to open a second restaurant, Baco, around the corner on Charter Street. And so we took advantage of that. But Cindy and I decided that we were going to do that ourselves. And we had also purchased the Mr. B's from the family, because that was in 1986. Cindy and I, along with two of our cousins, bought the restaurant because, I could just see the handwriting on the wall. Family businesses, lots of cousins. And we needed to branch out on our own. And although the family wasn't wild about it, they supported us in doing that.
So purchasing Mr. B's in 86, and then the opportunity through your landlord, right, to open Baco. And I guess that's really where I guess maybe your relationship with my father kind of started, because I was talking to my dad, who was a partner with Landis Construction for more years than I can remember. But he did a lot of the build outs for your restaurant. And really, when I asked him what was your first project with Ralph, he said Baco.
Right.
In 91.
It was. That was our first project. And I knew Jim Landis, and I reached out to Jim, and he introduced me to your dad. And then that was in 1991, we opened that restaurant, Baco. And then in 1997, we opened Redfish Grill on Bourbon Street.
Yeah.
And I decided to do that by myself. My sister didn't want to expand anymore. And so I did that, and Landis helped me do that.
Right. Yeah, no, I remember when the Redfish Grill opened, because I was at LSU at the time, probably there longer than my father or mother would have cared for me to be there, but that's a different story for a different day. One of my buddies, one of my best friends, one of my roommates actually got married close to around the time when I graduated, so it was later, probably in 99. But we actually had his bachelor party dinner at the Redfish Grill. There's a private room, and so we had the dinner there, and my family's had New Year's Eve there as well too. So a lot of experience there. Then for some reason you decide to go out to California.
Yes.
and open a restaurant in Anaheim, downtown Disney, in 2001. Now that was a Jazz Kitchen Coastal Grill and Patio, which I know my father was also part of that. What inspired you to do that, to go 1,900 miles away and try that out?
Well, Disney asked us to come.
Well, there you go.
So let me back up a minute.
Sure.
Prior to Disney asking us to come, we had partnered with the producers of the Jazz Fest to open a jazz club next door to Redfish Grill.
Okay.
Called Storyville.
That's right.
And we operated that. And there was a convention in town, and Disney sent a team of executives to New Orleans to scout out a possible operator for a New Orleans-themed restaurant.
Okay, so they wanted a New Orleans concept in Disneyland.
Well, not in the park, outside.
Right.
It's an area called downtown Disney, between the parks and the hotel. It's an entertainment and dining area. And I got a phone call one day. We'd like to talk to you. And flew out there, talked to them, decided to do it. And it was just an exciting opportunity.
Were you I'm trying to think about you in that space, and that during that time of your life, when you get this call, did you almost feel like the dog that caught the mail truck? You're like what am I doing? Or, I mean, were you excited? Were you nervous?
Sure.
Okay.
I was nervous and scared, and I'd never done anything like this before. But the Disney people we worked with in the beginning, especially the design people, were wonderful. And they held our hand through the whole design process. And I learned a lot. If I could show you what we presented them on day one and what we wound up with, vastly different.
Okay.
Layers after layers and layers. And we really started to understand how Disney thinks about all of their projects and property and all the things they build into them. And so we learned a lot from that.
Okay.
And we've been pretty successful out there. And they've been a great landlord.
Well, it's still operating. Right?
It's still operating. We changed the concept a year and a half ago, a little bit, to bring in this coastal grill because Disney was reconcepting downtown Disney, and they were trying to make it feel more like Southern California. So we modified our building a little bit. We've modified the food a little bit to include some Southern California style coastal cuisine, and but we still have our New Orleans favorites on the menu.
Nice.
And they continue to sell.
So from there, then along comes Ralph's on the Park. That was around 2003.
Right.
Which is, I mean, you have several incredible concepts. Ralph's is, I think it's neat because it's in Mid-City. It's right next to City Park, right, which is beautiful. It's a really cool space. We had my grandmother, she passed last summer at 96 years old, but I think I'd have to go back and look at Facebook. That's how I date everything in my life now. I look at Facebook posts to see when things happen. But we either had her 85th or 90th birthday upstairs at Ralph's on the Park. And it's a cool venue. And one of the things, well, I'd love for you to talk about this. When you walk into the space, on the main floor of the restaurant, there's this mural, right, on the wall. Can you just tell me a little bit about the history of the building, like what that mural signifies? I just think that's a pretty neat thing. Sure.
When we bought the building, my wife Susan was given a history of the building that the previous owners had prepared, and she read it, and she said, this restaurant, because it's going to be a locals restaurant, needs to feel like it's been here forever. And so what we did is we took two themes. It's actually two different murals. Two murals of things that had happened in the restaurant in the past. One of them on the right-hand side is a mural of a brunch that used to be served there when a member of the Alciatois family from Antoine's owned the restaurant. And he would have a brunch and he'd bring the symphony orchestra out there to play. And then on the other side was an interesting mural. Back in the day of Storyville, which was the red light district of New Orleans, the ladies used to have a ball. They called it the Ball of the Two Masked Gentlemen. They had that there at the restaurant. And the story goes, it was written in the history, that the wives of the gentlemen crashed the party and then got arrested because they didn't have the appropriate identification cards.
Oh, wow.
And therefore were arrested, and I don't know whatever happened to them, but that's the story there. And
that's a great story.
And I really credit my wife with that idea.
No, that's amazing. And so now in 2008, I'm just going through the timeline of Ralph Brennan. You release your cookbook.
Yep.
Ralph Brennan's New Orleans Seafood Cookbook. Now, I don't know if my dad ever told you this story, but I remember. I remember we were talking about we were home. Dad was talking about. He's like, "Oh, Ralph's going to release a cookbook," and so we're like, my sisters and I are always doing like silly things, and I was like, so we started pitching ideas. And we came up with the title that we were going to pitch to you, but I don't know if you ever received the title. But my younger sister, Jenny, who passed, she had a big spirit, just a huge personality. And we were always playing off of each other. But the title that we came up with was Recipes That Made Me Ralph. And my dad said, I don't think Mr. Brennan will appreciate that too much. But anyway, I just wanted you to know we were pitching titles for you.
Thank you.
I don't know if it ever got to your desk.
I didn't hear that one.
Okay. But what's your favorite recipe in that cookbook? I'm curious. Like,
oh gosh, don't ask me favorite questions.
Okay.
I really can't. And they're recipes that come from all the restaurants. Some of the redfish dishes, because I love redfish, and the simple ones like the hickory grilled redfish. But then we have a recipe in there for crawfish étouffée that's 5 pages long.
Okay.
Because it came from Gerard Maris, who was our chef at Ralph's on the Park for a while, and no, they're all good.
And one of the things I read about you, I love fishing. I mean, do you like to go fishing? Do you love to
I
go
do.
fishing?
I don't do much anymore.
Okay.
My passion now is golf.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
It gets me outside
When you do go
and I relax.
when you do go fishing, is it around here or is it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, just
Do you have
somewhere.
a spot?
No.
Okay, just wherever.
No, I had a guide, and then he retired.
Okay.
So I don't have a guide
You're in the
now.
market for a new guide? I
Yeah.
can probably find you somebody. I'm joking. But so now really going forward to 2014, I mean, to me, this is, the big moment where you have the opportunity to restore Brennan. So let's share that story with me.
Yeah, it's a wonderful story. I never thought it would happen. I've operated restaurants in the French Quarter almost my whole career. My office is in the French Quarter, so I used to walk by this building. I grew up in the building. I have such fond memories of the building. And my cousins, unfortunately, made some bad business decisions in addition to fighting among themselves. And they wound up getting into financial trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And some people approached me about talking with them, and I met with them and tried to become their partner, but they wouldn't do it. So they wound up going into bankruptcy. And I went to the courthouse one day and bought it with a partner. And I hadn't been in the restaurant really. I actually had been in twice, but for other events, so I couldn't look around. I didn't know the condition of the building when I walked in. My executive chef and director of operations, Haley Bitterman, got into the building before I did because I was on a conference call, and she called me and told me not to come. Give her 2 weeks, and that only got me here faster. And I looked around, and with her, we walked the building, and we're going, oh no. So
So at this point, it's not operating?
it was not, no.
It was not operating?
No, it was closed.
Okay.
And I had hoped to reopen it and then renovate it over time, but I didn't realize how bad a shape it was in. So what we did was we closed it for 16 months and then did a renovation of the building. We thought it was going to be 6 months, and it became 16 months and made some major changes to it. But
And Landis was also involved with that project?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So 16 months, what you thought was 6 became 16. And I was, again, talking to my dad, and he's like, yeah, there were some challenges.
Yeah.
On that project. We don't need to get into those, but still very, very important, very meaningful for you to make it live again.
It was. I didn't want it to go outside the family.
Right.
And so that's why I bought it. Like I said, we took 16 months to operate it. It came out really looking good. Beautiful restaurant. Mm-hmm. We had to make a lot of changes because of code issues, but essentially it's the same restaurant. No,
I mean, when I walked in, I'm just telling you, it's like going back in time. I was just like, well, this is exactly how I remember it growing up. Mm-hmm. So it looks amazing. And that was I feel like we're glossing over it a little bit, and I'm not meaning to, because that was a very big challenge for you. Also something very important to you. And I want to make it sound like Brennan's is your flagship offering, but as far as what it means to you and your family, I mean, I think it's a really big piece. And I tell people all the time, the prowess of your family name in this industry. It's when I put, people ask me, James, what's your top 5 in New Orleans? I'm like, Brennan's, Commander's Palace, Galatoire's, Arnaud's, Antoine's. That's my top 5. Right, wrong, or indifferent. That's just how I feel. But I mean, your family's 40% of that. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's it really speaks to your legacy, and I think your children. I mean, even your children. 2 of your children work for the company, don't they? Or no?
Only one now.
Only one now. Okay.
My son went out and bought a coffee company back in October. The coffee company that we were using at the time that he'd recommended, Congregation Coffee, got into trouble, and he bought it out of a bankruptcy, sort of like I did, and he's building his own little company, and it's great. He's going to learn a lot. We'll see where we go.
You had to get through COVID. 2020 to 2022, you're operating at least 6 restaurants at the time. How did you guys get through COVID with all of your employees and the pandemic? How did you do it?
It was tough.
Yeah.
That was probably the scariest thing I've ever been through.
Okay.
Because in one day, we shut every restaurant down. Including California. So our revenue went to 0. And of course, we had no idea how long we were going to be closed. And here in New Orleans, they kept us closed longer. And also in California, it was difficult. So
yeah.
Other parts of the state were able to open sooner, reopen sooner, or partially reopen. We tried to do some to-go food from Napoleon House, pick up and go. That really didn't work. I mean, we sold some. Ralph's on the Park we did some, but you can't make enough money on that to pay the bills.
Right.
And so it was a very difficult time. And some of those federal programs helped us out a lot.
So you leveraged those programs?
We leveraged those programs, and we tried to help our staff as much as we possibly could. I made a point, based on the lessons we learned from Hurricane Katrina, that we worked very hard to keep our management team in place, because I knew it was going to end. Same thing with Katrina. I knew we were going to come back at some point, and we did that, and that helped us a lot. We lost some people, some younger managers who maybe weren't from New Orleans had an opportunity to go somewhere else, and they did. But the core of our team stayed with us, and we made it through. It wasn't pretty. I'm sure there are a lot of things I do differently now that I have some experience, but no one had any experience with that. No one knew what to do.
Right. Well, you survived it.
We survived it.
And you kept core people.
Yes.
It seems like. And then you mentioned something that I didn't even really think about because I don't live in New Orleans on a daily basis. But in 2023, the saltwater wedge, with the drought up north and not as much water coming down the Mississippi, I didn't realize that the parish intakes were in the Mississippi River. So you have the saltwater wedge.
Yeah, it didn't make it here.
I know. That's what I read. But you guys were preparing for that.
We were preparing for that, trying to figure out what we're going to do, how we're going to keep our water fresh and safe. And we were working on the possibility of redoing some of the plumbing and all this kind of stuff. Another challenge that no one had ever encountered before.
Right.
It really started for us in 2001 with 9/11. And that really impacted us in California, because when that hit, and talking to Disney and their security people, they were told that theme parks were a major target, and especially a Disney theme park. So traffic dropped out there dramatically. New Orleans came back much quicker. But then we've had hurricanes here, Katrina, and
right. Well, even you say COVID. Disney theme parks. Theme parks were shut down too.
Right, they were shut down.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's crazy. Let's go to something lighter. I feel like we're talking about a lot of heavier things. So, you speak French. You go to a cooking school in Paris. Right? So, what is your favorite when you're cooking at home? What's your favorite dish or dessert to cook? Do you have like a signature Ralph? Like, do people come over for like a?
No.
Oh, Ralph's inviting us over, and he's going to make his Ralph bread.
No,
fish.
Susan and I don't entertain a lot at home, and
really?
and we eat pretty simply.
Okay.
We
you
usually
probably want to break from all that.
That's exactly it. A lot of salads, fish, chicken. That's the way we eat at home.
But you do have a...
Because I'm in the restaurants all the time, and I'm forever tasting, trying things.
That's true.
Or getting something stuck in front of me to try. Yeah. So
you're like, could I just have a love a salad?
Yeah.
And a glass of water.
Yeah.
Maybe a thin soup.
Yes.
Yes. Would be good. But you have a sweet tooth, right?
Yes.
We were talking, and you said that, so you have 9 grandchildren. And one of your you have a favorite birthday tradition. Tell our listeners about that. I love this story.
Well, a couple of years ago when I turned 70, I was not enjoying that.
Okay.
And as I was leading up to it, I was trying to think of what to do. And people are telling me you have to have a big party and all this kind of stuff. I did have a dinner for my brothers and sisters here at Brennan's and a couple of other friends and key people. But I wanted to do something with my grandkids, and there's an ice cream shop on Britannia Street called Creole Creamery. So I got their mothers involved and invited them to come, and I had invitations printed because little kids would love to get an invitation because they never get mail. So I sent them printed invitations to come to my birthday party at Creole Creamery at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and we had ice cream, and I've done it ever since.
And you get a milkshake? Is that?
No milkshakes. I usually get a scoop or two of chocolate peanut butter chip.
Chocolate peanut butter chip. It's hot in New Orleans, so since we're focused on frozen things, I think every New Orleanian should answer this question. If you are a snowball guy, what's your favorite snowball stand? What's your favorite snowball flavor at the stand?
Plum Street.
Okay.
Nectar cream.
Love it.
Snowballs have to be red.
Yeah, so there's Hanson's, there's the Hummingbird on Magazine, so we grew up Plum Street. My mother's was Orchid Cream.
Yep.
And cream ice cream, but the Nectar Cream is that's special.
Yeah, I was always strawberry, and then at some point, I don't remember when, I graduated.
You learned about the cream flavors?
Yeah, my palate improved.
Yeah.
And I had nectar cream, and I said, wow, this is wonderful.
When you need to beat the heat, when you get out of New Orleans to either just spend time with your family, your wife, your kids, your grandkids, where do you like to go? Where do you like to travel to just get out of town and relax?
I like to go to Colorado.
Colorado.
We have a condo in Aspen, and I still ski in the winter. And then we spend summers there. And COVID was good for us because it forced us to spend more time out there in the summer than we normally do. So that's our getaway place.
You mentioned earlier that you've really embraced the game of golf. Is there a particular course that you like to play around here, or a place that you like to go golf?
No, I just like to get on a golf course.
Okay.
I mean, the best thing that happened to me with COVID is Susan started playing golf.
Oh, great. So you do that together.
We do it together.
Awesome.
And she loves it.
Yeah.
She pushes me to play sometimes when I don't want to play, which is great. There's no guilt.
Yeah, it's hard for husbands, right, to get out and say, justify, well, hey, I'm going to go spend 4 hours without you. It's
Right.
lovely
Right.
that she can embrace that
Yes.
as well.
Yes, and she's pretty good, and she's fun to play with. And, you know, we play a lot in Colorado. We play in New Orleans some. And, I started playing golf when I was about 5 years old. My parents played golf, and they used to take me along. And I've been played my whole life. And just as I've gotten older, I really enjoy it.
No, that's great. Last question. I know you're a busy guy and you have a lot of things to do, but I'm just curious because I'm always looking for a good book. If there's a book on your bedside table, something that you've read recently, maybe something that you go back and read over and over and over again, like I do sometimes, what book are you reading right now, or what book do you think is a great book that you'd recommend to other people?
Well, you know, I like reading about New Orleans and trying to understand this place. And the book I read most recently was wonderful because it explains why we have a lot of the issues here. It's called Draining New Orleans.
Draining New Orleans.
It's written by Richard Campanella,
Okay.
a member of the Tulane Architecture School faculty. He's a wonderful writer. He's a wonderful tour guide. And it just talks about from day one here. I mean, we're surrounded by water, and then it rains. So we've been dealing with water since 16 whatever.
Yeah, it's below
So-
sea level. For people that don't know, New
Right.
Orleans is actually 6 feet, 9 feet below sea level.
Right.
I guess we're really a city of mer people. Like we live beneath the
Yeah.
water.
And so I thought it was fascinating because it just goes from day one all the way through. It goes through the history of New Orleans and drainage. And it teaches you why we have the issues that we have now, why we have potholes and everything, because we're really built on a marsh. And when you start draining marshes, that land compacts, and that causes problems. And then it expands when it gets some water in it. And
Yeah.
not as much as it compacted, but, you know, we're literally kind of floating here.
Have you ever considered joining the New Orleans Historic Preservation Society? Because I even think you were saying, how many of your buildings are actually on the historic register here?
Well, they're not all on the historic register, but all 4 of our buildings in New Orleans, other than the museum,
The freestanding.
the freestanding ones are from the mid-1860s or earlier.
Okay.
Brennan's, this building was built in 1795.
Right.
Napoleon House is 2 buildings, one in 1812, roughly, and the other in 1797. Ralph's Redfish Grill in the mid-1860s, although you couldn't tell because it's been changed so much over the years. And then Ralph's on the Park was in mid-1860s.
Yeah.
It was built as a coffee house because in the 1860s, it was a coffee house, and that was the country. So it was a day trip out there for people from the city, and they needed some place to get refreshments. And it's interesting, it's built on a ridge. So when it flooded, the city flooded during Katrina, it didn't flood because it's one of the higher parts of the city.
Right.
And it's not very wide because behind us and across the street in the park, it all flooded. But that restaurant was dry.
That's incredible.
I was shocked.
Well, let me ask you this. Are they still serving breakfast?
Yes, they
Downstairs?
are. Yes, they are.
Well, I think this is a good place to wrap it. I think I'm going to head down to, is it the Roost Bar?
Roost Bar.
Yeah, I'm going to get, so I've been trying to decide which drink I'm going to get, so I'll probably get both. I love your brandy milk punch. I also love a Ramus
choice.
Gin Fizz.
Good choice.
That was my grandmother's favorite, so I'll probably roll both of those. I'm going to get some form of Benedict. I
Okay.
can promise you that.
Try the egg sardou.
I might try the egg sardou. Actually, I will try the egg sardou.
Yep.
If Ralph recommends it,
Yep.
that's where I'm going. So that's a great place to wrap it. thank you so much for joining me today and for hosting me here. And I mean this when I say this. It's been an honor and a privilege to sit across from you today. And on behalf of myself and everyone else, please never stop doing what you do.
Thank you very much, and tell your family hello too. I'm really glad you came by.
Yeah, so am I. So you can find this episode of Southern Character and more on retiresouthern.com. Please visit our website, subscribe to our newsletter, and follow us on social media at Retire Southern. Ralph, thanks so much.